Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwin, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about Spacemarine chapters as we get into the Red Scorpions. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons. It's because of our patrons on Patreon that we can continue to put 40K videos every single day. If you want to support us, link in the description. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Red Scorpions. Uncompromising and Steadfast. The Spacemarine chapter, known as the Red Scorpions, are composed of conservative Imperial purists who are famed for their complete and utter devotion to Imperial doctrines, past the point where even reason would seem to require otherwise. The chapter's origin and what Primarch they descended from is completely shrouded in mystery, but at the core of the Red Scorpions is a belief system that focuses on purity. All other concepts are secondary, and in order to maintain this purity, in mind, body, and spirit, the chapter's battle brothers accept unquestionably extreme measures as a necessary part of their training regime. It is in their shared belief that only by undertaking such strenuous measures can they hope to identify and eliminate even the smallest taint of imperfection or contamination in those they encounter from outside the chapter. The chapter's ignorance to their founding might be why they put their faith and trust in the truly divine nature of the God Emperor, and pledge their loyalty to the Imperial cult, rather than maintain a purely secular view of the Emperor and the Imperial past. The chapter is largely traditional in its beliefs and loyalties. Its chaplains have a distinct interpretation of the Codex Astartes, to which they adhere to extremely closely. In their eyes, they do not deviate from its words in any fashion. As religious zealots, they are morally obligated to follow its sacred directive. Any deviation from its teachings must be thoroughly justified, as such remains a clear violation of the God Emperor's directive. The chapter's zealotry is expected of other members of the Imperium. Unfortunately, the Red Scorpions' physical enhancements enable them to survive acts of penance that would kill a mere mortal. Few in the Imperium are physically capable of maintaining a lifestyle that adheres to the high standards set by these Space Marines. As other Astartes seldom follow the tenets of the Imperial cult, there are few who willingly embrace such a lifestyle. This combination has led to the chapter's battle brothers having very little respect for other Imperial forces. Even during briefings and planning sessions, a Red Scorpion officer might question the judgment of those outside his chapter, as their lack of Imperial purity could easily bring in treachery and heresy. This overriding concern leaves the chapter largely unwilling to work with outsiders, except in the direst of circumstances. Some view this tendency as approaching an isolationist heresy. However, others gladly encourage the Red Scorpions to work independently. Accommodating their rigorous standards can be an exhausting process for any who must negotiate or work with them. All Red Scorpions consider hatred of the unclean and unholy as one of their most central virtues. In their eyes, that which might be contaminated must not be trusted, and that which is known to be contaminated must be eliminated with an appropriate application of force. The chapter's hatred for Xenos is easiest to understand, as all Xenos are by their very nature impure, and so they must all be cleansed upon contact. The chapter believes that if anyone is of a potential human heritage, they must be tested for mutation. Those who are found wanting must be eliminated at the earliest possible opportunity. Red Scorpions have no tolerance for those who violate these precepts. Even sanctioned Imperial mutants, such as abhumans or navigators, are kept at a distance. Were it not for the necessity of having a navigator amongst their crew, it is likely that the Red Scorpions would directly oppose them. This also affects the chapter's interactions with other Space Marines. The Red Scorpions hold a particular distrust of those such as the Space Wolves or the Blood Angels, who have been cursed in such a way to diverge themselves from the standards of the Codex Astartes. The Red Scorpions hold that the Codex Astartes represents a divine mandate that instructs them in every phase of their existence. When preparing for battle, the sacred text must be appropriately interpreted, but its wisdom must never be questioned. Many of the chapter's commanders use individual subsections to identify critical stages within every conflict. These individuals carefully identify the most relevant portions as they prepare for and command a battle, immediately and definitively using the most appropriate responses to any numerical or strategic shift in the given battle, such that the Army's forces constantly adjust their strategic responses as the tactical situation changes. Most Space Marine chapters generally regard the Codex Astartes as the most complete and advanced guide to warfare ever created by mankind. While its insights and advice may not address every imaginable situation, its framework offers a method of methodically and appropriately identifying the most apt solution. But by choosing to dogmatically follow the Codex in every possible way, Red Scorpions are dependent upon a tactical treaty that is unparalleled. Ultimately, the appearance of orthodoxy and fanaticism does not functionally limit their combat effectiveness. The chapter is organized into 10 companies in keeping with the standard Codex directive. Of the 10 companies, there is only a single divergence. The chapter maintains only its 2nd through 4th companies as battle companies. Its 5th serves as an additional reserve company, like the 6th and 7th. Its 10th, the Scout Company, is generally kept slightly under strength due to its inability to aggressively recruit while still actively on crusade. In keeping with the Codex teachings, the Red Scorpions excel at applying a combined arms solution to most tactical situations. For example, vehicles are used to support infantry units. Specialist infantry, such as assault marines, are carefully used only in those situations that are most easily overcome by their particular expertise. The chapter's fleet resources may be used as necessary to soften a target well in advance for a ground-based offensive. Part of the Red Scorpion's incredible success is due to this intense level of discipline maintained throughout the chapter. To a certain extent, this discipline is instilled through the use of religious focus in every aspect of their lives. Unquestioning obedience is second nature to a Red Scorpion battle brother. They firmly believe their lives are dedicated to and directly guided by the God Emperor. They trust in his guidance and the knowledge that if their lives are lost, they can enter the afterlife to enjoy his eternal blessings. This level of discipline enables the chapter's commanders to execute strategies that might be highly risky when utilizing troops that are not so thoroughly devoted to seeing a plan through its completion. But even in spite of this obsession with orthodox imperial dogma, the Red Scorpions are more than capable of innovative solutions to unexpected problems. The creation of the Helios pattern Land Raider is the best known example, but it is certainly not the only one. Every battle fought against an unidentified opponent requires a warrior to first identify the foe's strengths and weaknesses. Only once these are known can strengths be avoided and weaknesses exploited. The Red Scorpions are adepts at using a variety of different approaches against new foes in remarkably short order. Once a particularly effective tactic is identified, it is then used for as long as it remains effective. However, if no commonly known method provides a necessary solution, these Space Marines do not hesitate to attempt to find an alternative. But even when an alternative is decided upon, purity is always maintained. For example, while their Tech Marines might develop minor innovations, they do not stray from the omniscience path. These alternative tactical measures are considered only when evidence has been compiled that those dictated by the Codex are inappropriate. At times, this may require exhaustive and thorough analysis and discussion. The Red Scorpions are generally philosophically opposed to using covert techniques prior to and during a battle. They prefer to proudly demonstrate their presence and their markings. They firmly believe that iconography and war gear are a crucial symbol of their allegiance to the God Emperor. Anything that prevents their foe from seeing their insignia is an affront to their faith. While they have been known to use Codex standard camouflage patterns, even these are accepted only with reluctance. While initiates are first trained as Scout Marines, in keeping with the Codex standard, even they are seldom assigned to protracted reconnaissance missions. Instead, neophytes are generally deployed to either the main battle line or held in reserve. The Red Scorpions proudly wear their charcoal gray or black power armor with a mustard yellow helm stripe, shoulder plate trim, and aquila. Their chapter badge has always been a Red Scorpion centered on a field of white. Despite the Red Scorpion's long and impeccable record of service, there are still those within the Adeptus who distrust them on the simple grounds that their origin as a chapter and their gene seed bears no specific hallmark that would allow it to be secured to one of the original Loyalist Space Marine legions. Peculiar enough, some of the chapter's most notable core beliefs are founded precisely on the purity and consistency of its gene seed, and it will go to any lengths to preserve the purity and harvest the chapter's due from its fallen brothers to ensure the Red Scorpion's future. To the Red Scorpions, gene seed corruption would fundamentally weaken them or any other chapter of Space Marines, and thereby weaken the fabric of the Imperium itself, something they simply will not allow. Part of the chapter's pride and its unwavering adherence to the Codex and its teachings is justified in the purity of their gene seed and the glorious records of war and battles won in the Emperor's name. More cynical minds might wonder if the mysteries of the Red Scorpion's past and their origin might also have something to do with their fanatical desire to prove their loyalty, that they are beyond the reproach of their peers. Whatever the cause, the Red Scorpions have one of the strongest distrusts in allies. They believe that none amongst the followers or children of the Emperor share their own purity and strength of loyalty, and can never be fully trusted. This genetic curse usually comes in 3 stages. All Red Scorpion Battle Brothers will at some point enter Stage 1, where they come to question the purity of all the servants of the God Emperor, and cannot believe that they are somehow without fault or flaw. This is especially true for obviously tainted allies, despite any kind of sanctioning, such as psychers, abhumans, or navigators. When a Red Scorpion must deal with anyone with a psychic gift, including librarians of their own chapter, or any other type of mutation, they find it extremely difficult to deal with such individuals. Such a cold reception is almost always reciprocated, and such individuals often feel intensely uncomfortable in the presence of a battle brother, aware of the hulking warrior's scorn. Such arrogance will continue to manifest within the battle brothers. While it has always been held that the Adeptus Astartes stand above all other warriors of the God Emperor, many of the chapters consider themselves equal, and there is usually a degree of respect afforded between battle brothers, no matter their legion. Red Scorpions can come to believe that this is a falsehood, and that no other chapter can hope to match their loyalty, seeing even other Space Marines as lesser copies of themselves, and ultimately not as worthy of their position in the armies of the Emperor. In time, a Red Scorpion battle brother can come to believe that only his chapter alone can be trusted. Those around him, despite their outward claim and displays of loyalty, are in fact unreliable, traitors waiting to turn their cloaks. Though a battle brother that has entered this last stage in his genetic flaw will not move against such men without just cause, as such rash actions would shame his chapter and go against the Codex Astartes, which he holds in such high regard. He will be careful not to give them too much power over him, or expose his back unless he has to. A battle brother of the Red Scorpions who has progressed to this point in his genetic flaw will not work well with other members of any other chapter. This fanaticism for extreme genetic purity is most pronounced when in the presence of those tainted by the ruinous powers. All it takes is suspicion for the Red Scorpions to shift their stance with their allies, and once the hint of taint has attached itself to such an ally, they must work hard to lift it by providing their devotion to the Emperor beyond any shadow of a doubt. In what seems to be a contradiction to their beliefs, the Red Scorpions also maintain a librarium of potent psychers who are highly talented and trained to master the powers of the warp at the highest levels. Each chapter selects its librarian in its own unique way, either from seed worlds, as it does with the bulk of initiates, or from the ranks of the gifted psychers brought from the Adeptus Astrotelepathica. Most chapters train and test chosen psychers following the ancient ways laid out in the Codex Astartes. Librarians of the Red Scorpions are trained in this way, with few minor traditional variances, have been taught to rigorously live by the word of the Codex. Red Scorpion librarians have a number of unique psychic abilities only used by the psychers of their chapter. When using the word of the Codex Astartes, the librarian calls to the common bond between battle brothers, as laid down by the Codex Astartes, and reminds his Space Marines of their sacred duty and powerful heritage. Their power infuses nearby battle brothers with new purpose and devotion, boosting their morale and banishing any doubt. When a Red Scorpion librarian uses tormented flesh, he focuses on his foe's flawed physiology and corrupted spirit, turning it against them. The enemy's flesh will literally rebel against its owner as it twists, oozes, and bursts, fleeing the taint which saturates it. And one of the most unique abilities is the Bone Breaker, where a Red Scorpion librarian focuses his might and will into the blows he rains down on his enemies, filling his arm with righteous vigor. Even blows which would otherwise cause no damage send shockwaves through his enemy's body, pulping flesh and breaking bones. One of the earliest campaigns persecuted by the Red Scorpions was the Barilla Massacre. Prior to its disastrous failure during the Barilla campaigns and swift descent into madness, the Shining Blades chapter was one of those chapters renowned, alongside the Red Scorpions, Ultramarines, Umbra Titans, and a few others, with a gene seed record of extreme purity. However, the shining blades fell victim to their own pride, turning from the Emperor's will and beginning a traitorous campaign to cast down any who'd claim to be their equals. Now calling themselves the Flawless Host, they spent centuries harrying loyalist chapters, burning isolated outposts, and decimating smaller detachments of loyal Astarte warriors, until they assaulted the Red Corsair strike cruisers, the Crux Pirates, as a return from a campaign in the Segmentum Tempestus, capturing the vessel and taking the chapters dead to augment their stock of gene seed. Then Chapter Master Thy Crown of the Red Scorpions recalled all of his chapter's combat units from his previous engagement and scoured the area from which the Flawless Host was known to operate. Once the asteroid fortress used by the Flawless Host and its degenerate allies was discovered, Crown committed his brethren en masse to its utter destruction. In a titanic battle that raged for 6 solar days, the Red Scorpions battered the Flawless Host, blasting apart its defenses and storming its fortress chamber by chamber. Chapter Master Crown himself led the retaking of Frux Pirates, using the blade of the Scorpion to decimate the Flawless Host captain, who claimed the ship in single combat. Withdrawing in the face of the Red Scorpion's overwhelming wrath, the Flawless Host vowed to exact vengeance upon those who would tarnish its glory. The Imperial records would not mention the Red Scorpions again until the 38th millennium, when the chapter responded to a call to cleanse the world of Helios, of traitors who had turned against the Imperium. The war effort had been in progress for several decades, with Astra Militarum forces incapable of turning the tide. Shortly after their arrival, the Space Marines launched an assault against the traitorous, massively reinforced battle fortress. Much to their surprise, the Battle Brothers soon discovered that their traditional armaments were incapable of overcoming the resistance mounted upon its adamantium walls. Because the Chapter Master distrusted the Astra Militarum forces, he commanded the Master of the Forge to create an alternative solution. The result was the Land Raider Helios, a variant which mounts a whirlwind missile launcher atop a standard Land Raider hull. This hybrid tank soon proved its efficiency and was later accepted by the Adeptus Mechanicus as an official alternative Land Raider pattern. A millennia later, the second Aegis Crusade was launched by the Imperium of Man. Its goal was to reclaim the worlds of the dreaded subsector of Mandragora, after it was lost for nearly a century under a warp storm. The Red Scorpions gained high honor for their role in the later phases of the Crusade, which reconquered the worlds around the former subsector capital world of Hecuba. These worlds had fallen under the tyranny of a heretical Mechanicum sect based on the once proud Forge world of Sheol. It was now a world of chemical swamps and treacherous ash wastes, its ecosystem wrecked by millennia of unrestrained industry. The planet was heavily defended by legions of insane, half-mechanical servants loyal only to the Dark Magi who had created them. The paranoia of the Forge World's Dark Master had invested the planet with innumerable layer defenses, made up of thousands of kilometers of living razor wire, clusters of hurricane mines, and protected by labyrinthian fortress mazes. The Red Scorpion spearheaded the orbital assault against the planet, conducting a concentrated attack by drop pod assaults supported by Thunderhawks and assault rams, which managed to force a beachhead on the heavily defended planet. For 19 murderous solar hours, the chapter was forced to defend the landing zone against the phalanx of corrupted combat servitors, waves of surgically mutilated labor helots, and a vast and baleful war machine. But they would not break. Only through the Red Scorpion's resolute action did they enable the battle titans of the Ligo Tempestora and the Imperial Knights of House Weimar to safely land on the surface and deploy. Then they pushed past their valiant protectors to take the war to the foe. It would take a full 2 standard years to fully reconquer the fallen Forge world, as the warped master of the planet and their works were destroyed root and branch. But the Adeptus Mechanicus did not forget the chapter's sacrifice. When at last the conquest was over, after 2 standard years of brutal combat, the Red Scorpions took their leave of the planet. The Adeptus Mechanicus Lords of War did them homage, as towering knights and titans lined the route taken by the Red Scorpions as they marched to the landing zone, bowing them in homage as they passed by. And those were 40 facts on the Red Scorpions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends. What's interesting about the Red Scorpions is that it's really easy to hate them. They're like the Black Templars if the Black Templars weren't badass. I feel like the Black Templar, you saw a lot of images of Black Templars because they're basically the same concept of like zealotry. xenophobia, but none of the badassery of like being the descendants of the Imperial Fists. I have a feeling that the Red Scorpions are definitely the successor chapter of probably a loyalist word-bearer legion. It just makes sense. It makes sense that the word-bearers, after the whole Horus heresy, there had to have been some loyalists who actually believe in the divinity of the God Emperor, and this was all just being fulfilled, or they saw that like the Emperor ascending to the Golden Throne was just like the Book of Lorgar coming to life. So they stayed with the Imperium, wanting to continue to fight for the Imperium and worship the God Emperor. So it's interesting that the Red Scorpions are a thing. It's just I like the Black Templars better. I kind of don't know why. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think. I'll probably do a part 2. The Red Scorpions have a lot of lore. This is a redo. We did the Red Scorpions a long time ago, maybe like 2 years ago. So this is the updated video, or I should say the better video, because it's the same lore. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for other Space Marine chapters, comment down below. Don't forget we have a Patreon. It's because of all of our patrons on Patreon that we can post these videos that are a lot longer now. So thank the patrons, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.